It had been 2 years since Lisa had last experienced stress like this. Not that her own solo debut and multiple brand photo shoots had left her in the last years, but the chaos that comes with a group comeback is always a level higher. Lisa could feel it whenever she would log into any of her socials, the influx of anticipation and excitement making her feel both encouraged and nervous. It had been 2 years and they could not let their fans down. "From the top," she yells to no one in the room. It had become a habit, one that both her own members and seniors from Big Bang had teased her about. Not that she minded it. Dance was a form of discipline that she held precious in her hands. It had helped her make a name for herself, her family, her country, and one that continues to build her and her group despite the many setbacks. Lisa had just reached the hook of their title song when her phone rang. Normally, she would have kept it on silent, but after that one incident where she did not take any breaks for over 2 hours and was interrupted by Rosie barging into the room, eyes worried and anxious, Lisa was strictly ordered, to never keep it silent. She was thankful yet again for that order, or she would have cursed herself for not being here on time. "We'll sort this out," she whispered against Jennie's shoulders, tightening her arms around her older sister. Jennie wasn't outright crying. She used to, back when they were still rookies, back when the only hate they got was related to their bad fashion choices and voice cracks. Back when Jennie wasn't questioned every second if she deserved to be where she was right now. She used to cry loudly then. Not anymore. Meh. Jennie's voice was heavy with tears that rolled silently down her cheeks, soaking in the hoodie Lisa had thrown on in a rush. It had been a worried Jisoo who had called her, explaining as calmly as she could what all had happened and how Lisa needed to get checkup on Jennie because the other two were too far away to reach Jennie quickly. Lisa was out the door before Jisoo had even completed her explanation. And here she was now, trying to hold Jennie's shivering form and begging for her own anger to calm down, because this wasn't about her. Jajia! Lisa didn't have to look up or even guess whose soft voice it was. No one other than their eldest member used the affectionate term when one of them was down. And it seemed to trigger something in Jennie, who gasped before whimpering softly in Lisa's shoulder. "Oh, my Jajia, why are you crying? Don't cry. Uni will fix this, okay?" Jisoo dragged the small chair that Jennie usually used to practice guitar on and pushed it against the bed. She proceeded to hug Jennie from behind, making happy noises as she buried Jennie in the warmth. Too much warmth. Can't breathe! Lisa laughed as she loosened her arms, earning a slap on her thigh for being so cheeky, but it was worth it. "Oh wow, you got so pink!" Jisoo smiled at the wine, not letting her younger sister go even when Jennie struggled in her arms. "Do you not love Uni anymore?" "It's so hot." The giggles, despite being a little breathless and a little muted, felt nice ringing in the small room. Jisoo buried her face in Jennie's hair, willing herself to not cry. Her members needed her, counted on her to keep them together. "You know what's hot?" Their heads turned to the door where Rosie was standing with her hands raised, plastic bags dangling from her fists. "These jagamions." "My best girl," Jisoo said in English, making everyone coo at her adorable accent. Everyone except Lisa, who was busy staring at Jennie. "I'll get the plates. You set up." Jennie's voice made Jisoo turn to her. "I'm not hungry." It would be an understandable request if anyone else had made it. They all knew how difficult it could be to eat after receiving news as horrible as this. But it wasn't anyone else. It was Jennie. "You won't do that again." Rosie flinched at Lisa's brutal honesty, though they all knew it was necessary. "Just take 3 bites, but eat, please." Jisoo ran delicate fingers through Jennie's hair, carefully watching as the younger thought for a few minutes before meekly nodding her head. Jennie still looked unsure, though, and Jisoo could only think of a few things to cheer her up. "You get dating scandals without interacting, and I don't get even a rumor with Hae-in Oppa." She had thrown a dart in the dark, and she was glad when her members burst out in scandalous laughter at that. Jisoo smiled, hoping she could continue to lighten moods, because things were about to turn uglier. "That's the first thing you ask?" Lisa hadn't meant to shout. She was outside, away from the members who were sleeping peacefully after their lunch. The call had come unexpected, but she was almost relieved to see it was from Taehyung, only to hear him asking about what their agency was planning to do. "Lisa, Jennie has literally been crying for hours. She is not able to eat or even sleep properly, and this is what you want to know about? Lisa, listen. How can you be so freaking sensitive?" Lisa hadn't meant that. Lisa did not mean that. If Jennie was sensitive, Taehyung was emotional. Where Jennie was affected by public's words, Taehyung took the words of his friends to heart. And he considered Lisa a friend, had proven it only weeks ago. "Sorry." The line went dead, and Lisa felt like she lost something she didn't even know she owned. Seokjin had 15 minutes. He had seen Taehyung call up Lisa to understand YG's plan of action, so the two companies could have a meeting to resolve everything. He had seen his younger's face slowly crumbling as he kept mostly quiet. He had seen his brother whisper a soft apology before hanging up, throwing the phone down on his bed. So now, Seokjin had 15 minutes before he knew Taehyung would slip into a mask of indifference that he absolutely detested. Usually he would cook up something because most of his brothers found comfort in food. But the window of time he had today was so small. So instead, Seokjin tried his best to follow the recipe he had learned only recently. "Tae?" He gently pushed the door open with his foot, eyes softening when he saw Taehyung curled up in his bed. "Tae-Tae?" No matter how much he disliked talking when he was like this, Taehyung never ignored his Haehyung's calls. Seokjin smiled softly at the acknowledgement, walking inside and toward the bed. He carefully placed the tray down on the nightstand, sitting down against the lump of blanket that was his brother. "I tried to make chocolate milk." Seokjin tried his hardest not to smile when Taehyung slowly turned around at his words, though the crinkling of the corners of his eyes gave it away. Not that any of the two minded it. Taehyung almost wanted to curl up in his Haehyung's lap and just joke about Seokjin's laughing lines, or wrinkles, as he would call them just to mess with his Haehyung. If it meant he could forget everything. "Really?" he asked, with wide, almost shocked eyes. Seokjin chuckled at that, stroking Taehyung's hair out of his eyes as he reached forward to pick up the glass. "It might not be perfect, but it's perfect." Taehyung was quick to sit up against the headboard, gently grabbing the glass from Seokjin's hands. "You haven't even tasted it." Taehyung narrowed his eyes at Seokjin as he took a big sip, eyes widening as he did so. He sighed happily after he put the glass down, wiping the top of his lip with his tongue. "And I was still right. This is perfect." The door to Taehyung's room was left ajar, which meant Yoongi had a clear view of Seokjin reaching out to pinch the younger's cheek. And in turn, Taehyung tried to wipe his lips on Seokjin's sleeves, earning a loud screaming complaint from the older. The rapper smiled crookedly at the sight, shaking his head at their antics, before his eyes turned darker. he could hear Namjoon on the phone, calling the higher-ups to sort out the mess of the new article. The younger had abandoned work as soon as their manager showed them the article, calling up authorities that were not giving him any clear answers. Yoonji pulled out his phone, going through his contact list for the familiar name. His call was picked up after 5 rings. "Rosie?"